Welcome to the 3 Knockdown Rule. Starring Mario Lopez and Steve Kim. Presented by Hustler Casino.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 3 Knockdown Rule brought to you by Hustler Casino is in effect. I'm Steve Kim, joined by my co-host, always Mr. Punctuality, Mario Lopez. Thanks for showing up.
Oh, is that your moniker today?
Yeah.
You know what? Some of us have other things to do, Kim, but this is the highlight of my day. Not because of you, because of people like Smoking Tim Frazier and
Tino on the edits. All right, the bout sheet, we're going to keep it really simple. The president of Top Rank joins us live in studio, Todd DuBoef. But before we get to him, we just want to let you know this podcast is sponsored by Hustler Casino. Beat the congestion and enjoy free parking every day at Hustler Casino. Introducing So Fine Sundays, where every Sunday you can win tons of cash with drawings every 2 hours from high noon to 8 p.m. Stop by and see how big you can win at Hustler Casino.
Catch it streaming live right on YouTube.
Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
$1.2 million.
And I'm losing in this fucking game. What the fuck?
There's a 400K flip. If I win by the way, you get 10 grand.
Fucking straddle!
For my fans!
What? I read it twice!
Wow. All in a call.
I'm not fucking leaving!
Raise it up.
I'm very proud to introduce someone that I've known a long time now. I was just thinking about it, and I'm like, oh my God, we're getting old because it's literally decades. President of Top Rank Boxing, Mr. Todd DuBoef. How you doing, bud?
Good, buddy. How you been?
I'm doing well. I was trying to think about what around the first time we met, and it must have been the 90s.
It was Oscar's career.
Wow, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
In the heart of Oscar's career.
That's right. So that was 90s, right?
When you
Early
almost
90s.
ruined his second fight in San Diego.
We don't need to go back that far. But yes, it's awesome to see how far Top Rank has come, and you're president now, and you know I love your sister Dina, and it's the best, man. You guys put on awesome shows. You know how to build a fighter, stronger than ever, and the way the sport has changed since the 90s, since we went there, I found fascinating, not only obviously from the demise of HBO and Showtime, which I thought I'd actually never seen. I'm surprised considering content is king, especially live content. It's ebbed and flowed with the sport, but like a cockroach, you can't kill it. It'll always be here, and it always seems to thrive. And I always say when boxing is at its best, nothing else compares.
Absolutely. I think, HBO was a great place and Showtime was a great place. But the truth was that all of these guys used it for their success of their platform. It was the biggest thing on free-to-air television. And they're like, hey, let's throw shitloads of money and put it behind a paywall and make everybody subscribe to our services. Mm-hmm. So people used it to grow their subscription.
Right.
And kind of took it off of where normal television, where the NBA or the NHL or the NFL is, and that kind of changed the dynamic a bit. We became a little siloed behind a paywall, but I think it's been great for us. And now that we moved off of that and we moved into the ESPN world, which has been a great partnership, and it's great to see the sport. And the best thing I love right now is this global nature to it. Mm-hmm. It is extraordinary to see the world so flat and access to all these guys.
Well, that's the thing about boxing too. But it's truly an international sport. Whenever a football team calls itself a world champion, with all due respect, we're the only country playing in the world. But when you are a world champion in boxing, that is a true world champion. We walk into any boxing gym. You take Wild Card Boxing Club, for example. You could talk to someone from Mexico, Kazakhstan, the Philippines, Nigeria, literally in the same hour. And it's beautiful to see. Everyone's there. Everyone's getting along. The world would be a better place if it was more like a boxing gym.
Well, it's, and one of the things is it's because it's an Olympic sport. And that really is the establishment that really got it 100 years ago, embedded it into the countries. The countries funded their kids to hopefully somebody could come from their country and have a medal. And that gave people hope. It gave them promise and grew the sport organically.
Todd, speaking of a world champion and someone who's more than just a big figure in his homeland is the monster Inoue. And you guys are actually doing back-to-back shows October 13th and 14th with some of the other champions from that region of the world. Can you explain the Inoue phenomenon? Just how big is it?
I mean, it's hard to explain in U.S. terms because it's Michael Jordan-esque, right? In Japan, he's that big. I mean, him and Otani are the two icons there. But I think it's an appreciation of this kid is so damn good. I said this, a couple of years ago. I looked at one of our matchmakers after a fight. I think it was the Maloney fight, and I'm like, I think he may be. Tell me I'm not crazy. Is this guy if I said he's the best fighter I've ever seen since my career, which started in '93, would I be wrong? And they usually crap all over anything I say, and they said, no, you wouldn't be that way. And so I think he's the best fighter I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah.
Cotto, De La Hoya, Mayweather, James Toney. He's number one.
I think he is. I think the way his aggressive style, I think the power in both hands, I think his defense, I think the way, other than him getting cracked really good with the Nuri fight, which is just fine. It happens to anybody. I think he has, and I just love his style, right? And I think style also gives me a guy that's going to be aggressive and hunt is just so telegenic for me. I just love that.
I agree. He's incredibly talented. I'm just surprised a little bit to hear that, considering you were involved in Manny Pacquiao's career.
But Manny became a two-handed fighter. He wasn't he didn't start as a two-handed fighter.
No, correct.
And Manny got hit. Remember, he'd come straight in and square up. You don't see that as much from Inoue. He's a little smarter in the pocket, but I just love watching him fight.
Yeah, Mario, I think that, and I've said this before, Inoue may not be the volume puncher with the in and out movement. He's not as frenetic. I think he's more technically sound, okay? But he doesn't have the rivals in America. I think that's been the big difference.
I agree with that assessment. I would just counter with, I think Pacquiao is one of the best physical specimens I've ever seen, with a combination of speed and power, both hand speed and foot speed, and the way he was obviously able to climb in the weight categories and capture all the world titles that he did. That's just, to me, he's on my Mount Rushmore, considering what he was able to do and in the fashion he was able to win those fights.
Right. I think one of the tricks my guys are, my matchmakers, both Bruce Trampler and Brad Goodman, always say is, whenever you want to really do this fantasy, like how good is somebody, they always say, how far do you have to go back to beat him? How far do you have to go back to beat him? Right. At welterweight, do you go to, how does Oscar in his prime and Trinidad in his prime, how do they do with Manny? How do they do with Ray Leonard or Tommy Hearns? Right. How far do you have to go back? And when you go with Inoue at 18 or 22, it's you. Who knows? Who knows?
You may not go back enough.
Todd, you were there in early May when he fought Neri, and I think there was a crowd of announced over 45,000 at the Tokyo Dome. What was that scene like?
It was 55,000, if I'm correct. And they were all there from the first bell of the first fight. And you just see seas of people in the concession areas and the promenade. And it wasn't like it had this incredible feeling like people were there, like they were seeing something really special. And, I thought that the environment was great. I thought everything was great, but just to see them there from the first fight, you've been there in Las Vegas. We've been to a certain fight, and you're waiting for the crowd to fill in. They're getting their dinner or whatever it is. These people made a whole day out of it. They were like camping out like it was a football game.
That's awesome.
Now, after his last fight, TJ Doheny. Now, Bob Arum, I know Bob says a lot of things, but I want to get confirmation. He made an announcement that Inoue would be making a fight appearance in America next year, and maybe a guy like Junto Nakatani, who'll be fighting on October 14th, could be the co-main as some sort of prelude to a showdown. Is all of that somewhat true, at least, Todd?
I think it sounds great.
Okay. So, but
I love it.
Yeah.
I think it's fucking great. I think it sounds great.
Okay. So, was he lying today and telling the truth tomorrow? I mean, where would you rank that among the Bob Arum truth scale?
That was completely the truth, both with what he thinks and what we're doing.
Okay.
Right.
So there we go. That's the confirmation.
So I would say this. I would say we've always wanted to bring him back outside of the COVID, right? Because that was the last time he was here, and it was a COVID thing. And he just got exponentially bigger. The market got bigger. And remember, Japan is a mature market. So it's not like a primitive market. It has robust media, has big economy. So he can do really well there economically. And I think now it's our time to and I've been, I would say the last 3 months, been trying to figure out how do I get him here and when does that happen? So we're trying to work on something.
Yeah, that's the thing. When you become such a big star and economically, you really have maybe not as much incentive, then it becomes difficult.
Well, Mario, here's the difference. A lot of fighters, when they come from their country to America, are getting a significant pay raise.
He'd be getting
a haircut.
He'd be getting a haircut.
Right.
Yeah.
That is the truth, because when you look at some of the numbers that have been reported, and I know friends that have been out there for his fights that live in America, they say when you go to one of his fights, it is like a rock star performing. Right. It's a one-night concert. You go to the subways, and there's Inoue pictures all over the place. You go to the buses. That really doesn't exist in America. And I'll tell you a story from one of my ticket broker friends, Jim Boone, KO Tickets. He told me that when the pandemic struck, all right, when everything started getting shut down, and that was March of 2020, the first fight was a Shakur Stevenson fight at the theater. Inoue was supposed to fight John Rel Casimero at the Mandalay Bay that April.
Yep.
He told me it was the biggest ticket he had seen in 10 years because of the Japanese whales. He almost cried when they had to basically expunge that whole event. And he said, Steve, there's something there with Inoue that I don't even think people understand yet.
And I think I also think that we are really, as Americans, we're really arrogant. And we feel like you have to come to America to make it. And I think that's such bullshit. I mean, it's like, this isn't the era of the Beatles, right? It isn't the era where they came off the plane. It's like, oh, you're coming to America, you're taking over. And I think that, Ohtani, you take a similar example, right? You take Ohtani. Well, Ohtani, the economics coming through baseball is in America. The economics coming through baseball isn't in Japan, so that's why he's here. But the economics of boxing can be either in Japan or in America,
especially being an individual sport.
Yeah,
right.
and he could be in the UK, he could be in Latin, he could light it up anywhere, and that's the difference.
Absolutely. Friday night at MSG, we've got Michaela Mayer, I should say, who beat Sandy Ryan. Bruce Carrington won. Xander Zayas. What are your thoughts on the card itself and the results?
The card itself and the results. Interesting. I thought, first of all, let's finish with the Michaela fight, because I thought that was the star of the show. Not always is the main event the star of the show, but I thought that fight was the star of the show. I thought Shushu had a tough fight. I thought he learned a lot in this fight. I thought that, he probably struggled a little bit with the southpaw. And I think he gave him a little too much respect and let the guy get off. He should have put more pressure on him, but he's going to learn from it. Most people are like, Shushu didn't look good, but that's all part of, developing, right?
Exactly.
I mean, how many times we talked about if it was Floyd and Reggie Sanders in a second fight?
Well, you have a funny story about that.
Yeah, Floyd fights Reggie Sanders in a second fight, and it was a 4-round fight, and it's in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I actually didn't go. Something happened. I don't know why I didn't go. And right after the fight, I get a call from Big Floyd, and I think he was either in the halfway house or he's somewhere like where
transitioning,
where the phone doesn't stay so on all the time, right?
Shoddy service,
and he starts screaming at me, man, I told you not to put my boy in with a southpaw. It says southpaw. And I was like, man, I didn't put him in. What are you talking? And I'm scared out of my mind. He's screaming at me and yelling. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm probably 29 years old. So I said, let me check on this. So I go up and I run to go see Trampler. And I'm like, guys, Big Floyd just called me screaming and yelling. You put him in with a southpaw. Why'd you do that? You made me look like... And Bruce is like, no, I didn't. What are you talking about? He goes, it wasn't BoxRec at the time. It was one of these service. Fight Facts. Go to Fight Facts. And I looked it up, and it was Reggie Sanders orthodox, right? Yeah. Not a southpaw. So I was like, so what happened? He's like, he figured he couldn't win the fight, so he'd just go southpaw. And he just screwed with them. And it was like, and Floyd truly struggled with the fight.
Good adjustment on
That
Reggie's
was a
part.
Sunday afternoon ESPN show in support of Johnny Tapia, and the crowd actually booed Floyd in his second pro fight.
Wow.
Yeah. So
you remember, real quick, since we're on Floyd for a second, what were your thoughts immediately after the first Castillo fight?
I actually thought he won the fight, but a lot of people
Floyd.
said, yeah, I actually thought he won the fight. A lot of people didn't. And I probably say that I had my my glasses on that were probably a little jaded at the time.
Okay.
I'm willing to admit that. You know, I think we all have to say we're not necessarily objective all the time. And most people thought that Castillo beat him that night.
You're sitting with two people who believe that. I was there ringside. I had it 115, 111, just like Letterman did for Castillo.
Yeah, so did I. Just like Letterman did. And it was a close fight and a tough fight. And obviously he proved in the rematch what the deal was with Floyd. But yeah, in that first one, yeah, it's curious because I think that changes, had it gone that other way, it changes the trajectory of his career.
Oh,
dramatically, right?
Changes history, right?
Right.
I'm not taking the risk.
Right.
He became
So it did change him. It changed him.
Oh, I felt Floyd at 130.
All-time great.
Amazing.
I agree with that.
mean, amazing. I mean, I remember. I mean, listen. I mean, even when he fought Tony Pep right before the Gennaro fight, that was a tough fight. His father's like, "Give us Gennaro," and we all remember Gennaro. He was like, I mean, Oscar, we waited for him to fight Gennaro. We waited for that match because he was tricky. He was a great boxer. He knew how to do it. And our guys are like, just sit tight. Let's give him Pep. And he went 10 hard rounds with Pep. And when he went in the ring with Gennaro, I was like, oh my God. And then when we took Angel Manfredi.
2 months later, by the way.
Blitzed him. And I was like, and he was aggressive.
Right. Todd, I've always said this. That version of Floyd, and when I was there with Doug Fisher, we're at Max Boxing, we're starting this young website. When we saw what he did to Diego Chico Corrales, I remember me and Doug saying, Doug, we're not going to see 5 better performances for the rest of our careers. He was that spectacular at that point in time. We got sidetracked. We want to give these fighters a little bit of due. Xander Zayas, are you happy with this progress at age 22 years old?
Very. I think he's still young, very ambitious. I mean, the only one, a lot of my guys, I got to just say, everyone talks about our matchmakers. They talk about how they do this and what they do. They're very cautious at times, but they try to really, they get the right pacing of it, right? It's like, we talked about it like with Jared Anderson. It's acclimatizing, right? You have base camp at one level. Before you go to the top, you got to go to camp 1. You got to go to camp 2. You got to keep moving up that level. And I think Xander is so excited to get to the top of the summit, and my guys hold him back a little bit. But I think he's maturing the right way. And I think he's getting better. And I think he's going to more fights like the one he just had on Friday night will give him that experience.
Yeah, he's getting some solid rounds in with tough, rugged guys. In the main event, finally, Michaela Mayer catches a break. Look, I thought it was a really good fight. Let's go back. How badly did you feel for Michaela after the Jonas fight and how that decision went down?
I felt, I wasn't there, so I was at the Baumgartner fight, and I thought that she gave away the early rounds with Alicia. I really did. And I went into the locker room and was like, stop the sourpuss, stop that, just own it. Let's just go forward and we'll deal with it. Jonas fight, I thought she won. I felt really bad, but actually she was mature in the whole thing. The way she handled it, she wasn't bitter, she wasn't salty. She handled it. And I really wanted to see her because I just wanted to see her have that moment. And I was really worried. I felt of those fights, this was the hardest fight on paper. I think she's fighting above the weight. I think it was a tough fight. And I thought she fought brilliantly. I thought she was sharper. She was more active. She was beating her to the punch. She was finishing every exchange. I was so happy for her. And I always say, one thing about Michaela is I don't have to worry about her in life, right? Yeah. She has it. She's got swagger. Whatever she's going to do, she's going to be a winner, right? And to see her just excel at what got her into this thing, which was boxing, is amazing.
Todd, you've seen it all in boxing. Who told you that Sandy Ryan was the victim of a drive-by with the paint? I thought I heard it all, but coming out of the Fight Hotel, someone just splashed her. Like, how did you find out about that?
The shit we deal with in this business, people have no idea. They have no idea what the crap we go through. And the nonsense, and guys not making weight, and guys, shit happens all the time.
You
Stuff
bail them out of
guys in jail, guys in
Exactly.
here, guy misses the cab, misses the flight to get. So you got to get another opponent because this guy missed his flight, and it's crazy the stuff we deal with.
No, it is, and that's why I love it, because it is. It's like the wild, wild west. And someone in your stable who I'm a fan of. I think I'm just fascinated by him because I think he's incredibly talented. I feel that he's achieved a lot of his accomplishments based on pure talent and reflex, and obviously the skill level is there. But Teofimo Lopez, who does dare to be great, he fought Loma when no one else wanted to, took on Taylor in a wonderful performance. I happened to be there that night in New York. But you were talking about the stuff we deal with. I feel like I want to be like a big brother to him and kind of shake him up. Like, I don't want this talent to go to waste. What's up with you? Can we stay a little focused? What's with the distractions? Don't burn the candle at both ends. It's like all this. That's got to be it's almost like a pain in the ass to deal with, especially when you have someone that can accomplish all these things. What is the latest with him? Sorry for the long.
I honestly, I don't know what the latest is.
Come on.
What am I going to tell you?
Really?
That's why we have this new show called Fight Life. You get to see what Teofimo's like. You get to see all this stuff that goes on. It's crazy.
Don't these guys? I hate to interrupt. Don't these guys want to fight? We talked about the '90s. I remember Oscar was fighting like 5 times a year. Don't these guys want to make money? Don't they want to build themselves as a brand and be a star? Don't they realize they won't get paid unless they fight?
Well, hold on a second. You're preaching to the converted. Everything you say, I would say yes to, right? But we're not them. Some of them want to take time off. Listen. Some of them are in different places of the career. I think he had some family issues. I don't know what it was. Teo. Freakish talent, great fast twitch muscles. Comey knockouts, extraordinary. Right. Had some off times, kind of went into a little bit of a funk. I thought the Taylor fight, most people wrote him off there. And he showed up and was brilliant.
Yes.
Super talented. Got a terrific personality when he wants to put it on. Gets a little out there sometimes, but sometimes you just gotta you present the opportunities to him, and you got to say, what do you want to do?
Yeah,
I can't get in the head. I can't get in the head.
It's so frustrating. As a fan, it's so frustrating.
I agree with you.
Keep this in mind. That show on Friday, that was a Teofimo Lopez date.
I know. That's why I bring it up.
And then he had some ideas that the big Honduran contingent in Orange County would have been a big box office bonanza, except, ESPN kind of has a say in when these dates go on. The show must go on, and that's the reality. And I'm not so sure when he's going to fight again. And if he doesn't know, I certainly don't.
We would listen. Ideally, we like to give him opportunities. What do you want to do? And my team's in touch with them. I obviously, the hungrier they are, the more they want to fight, the more they want to take on all the comers, the better it is for the sport.
Yeah.
Todd, do you think, and you've been there, and you work very closely with De La Hoya, with Floyd Mayweather, you were especially close with Miguel Cotto for a long time. Are fighters today, with the environment of the business, the whole ecosystem, and who's involved now, is it more difficult now than to develop a fighter than it was, let's say, in 1997 through 2010?
Everything's different today. It's not just boxing, right? Look at this NIL with college football. It's like boxing with no contracts, right? People are shuffling decks everywhere. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just a different climate. There's so many more options. You have to cut through a lot more noise. You got to use social platforms more than just the broadcast being able to be the way to tell the story. So it should be easier. We should be able to get these guys to activate on their social channels that could raise their profile like the influencers do. Mm-hmm. So I just think it's a different world, and you always have to be changing and be ahead of it.
Yeah, but
you can't sit on your ass and be complacent and then complain about the sport.
Right,
that's bullshit.
But Todd, with that being said, and I think that you have to be able to promote yourself on social media, but there's nothing that promotes anybody in boxing such as fighting and doing your job, because I've charted this before. When Floyd Mayweather, Cotto, and De La Hoya became world champions in the early 20s, you know what the difference is between today's guys like Shakur Stevenson? Shakur became immediately a 2-fight-a-year guy at 16 fights. De La Hoya, Cotto, Mayweather, who I think became pretty big stars, they all had years after winning their first belt. They fought 3, 4, and in De La Hoya's case in 1997, 5 times. As a boxing journalist, I can't really do a lot of stories on you when you're laid up for 9 months. That's the reality.
Well, and I remember they would have fights on HBO. They would have a pay-per-view fight, and then maybe they would have a fight. That wasn't necessarily a big feature fight, just to stay busy, to stay sharp. I don't know if it's the mentality gone, the people behind them. What happened to managers or other people of influence saying, "Hey, you don't get better doing something less, and you don't make any money if you don't fight"? What's the thinking here? It blows me away.
Listen, this is a long conversation, probably not real sexy for this show, right? It's like we could talk about the X's and O's of how it happened. But I think there was something, the real Achilles heel of the sport happened with the multi-fight agreements with the networks back in the HBO and Showtime days.
Yes.
That was a cancer.
Right.
The second cancer was rematch clauses.
Ooh, yes.
All right.
That's another good yes.
Third cancer, comeback fights. All right.
If you lose on a network.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I couldn't imagine Sugar Ray Leonard or Marvin Hagler saying, "Oh, I need a rematch clause." I'd be like, "Are you crazy? I'm going to knock his head off," right? I mean, they'd be insulted if you said something like that. So I think the multi-fight agreements had this provision that if you lost, they could terminate the contract. So as a result of it, managers and everybody said it's an annuity. Why take the risk?
It's one perpetual safety net after another, and we got more cancer than the Mayo Clinic. Just before we continue on here with Todd DuBoef, president of Top Rank Boxing, the 3 Knockdown Rule on Hustler Casino. Hey, folks, are you looking to get involved with us and sponsor our show? We have some spots available. Please email us at info@boxbid.io. Once again, that's info@boxbid.io. Boxbid is an online platform that helps professional boxers connect with their fans by providing exclusive Fight Week merchandise, memorabilia, and sponsorships. You can even buy a shout out on BoxBid. BoxBid.io handles our sponsorships, and we are proudly working with BoxBid.io. Todd, I bring this up often when we talk about activity, which matters. And you were really close during the heyday of James Toney. From 1991 to 94, I describe him as the last full-time American champion because, as Mario alluded to, HBO, pay-per-view, USA Tuesday night fights, sometimes a Friday night fights, and back to HBO. He basically fought from 91 to 94 over 24 times.
Love me some James
And
Toney.
a lot of those were non-title fights, which you don't see anymore. Those things are extinct. How did you convince a wild child James Lights Out Toney to do that?
You don't convince him. He convinces you.
Yeah, that's what he told me.
He convinced you. It was like, man, just put this bum in front of me. Yeah. I don't care. What's the money? We'll figure it out. Let's just go. Get me the guy. And then we had
That's
like
a fighter mentality.
Yeah. We had CBS. We had he would go like CBS, ES. He's like, I don't care.
He had one provision. He said, I said, Todd, just give me 6 figures. We'll figure the rest out.
He didn't care. Yeah. He just didn't care.
How awesome is that?
Yeah.
You had to go figure it out. He's like, I want to go. I want to go next month. Listen, believe it or not, I tell the story, and I don't know if I've even told the story. And Floyd comes to me, and it was the end of the year, one year when he was like first year that we were doing him, and I don't have his record in front of me, and he's like, man, I got to get in the ring. I got to beat somebody up. I'm like, right, and I was like, what? He's like, man, please. He comes in my office, and I want to say it's like November, and he's like just before the end of the year, and we have a fight in Chula Vista.
My hometown.
All right. This is and I'm like, Floyd, I only have like, he's like a 6-round fighter. I said, I got no money. I got nothing. He's like, I don't care. Just put me in the ring.
See, that's a fighter.
Yeah.
And that was like, I got it. Yeah. That was James Toney. That was the guy that wanted to he had this thing, this fire inside of them. Right. To learn their craft, to show their craft, to whip ass, and they wanted to do it. They were fighters.
Yes, that's
Todd, Those are Floyd Mayweather's first 12-month stretch as a pro, he fought 11 times. De La Hoya in his first 12-month stretch fought 10. And I tell these young managers all the time, well, we got a great minimum. I said, the minimum is great, and I've had arguments with. I said, here's the problem. You're limiting yourself to about 4 or 5 fights right now as a prospect. I personally don't think that's enough. And I ask him, do you think you're better than Floyd or Oscar? Just pure talent. Just ask yourself that. And they made a lot of money because they were honed. They had sharpened the blade. But that's a lot of the problem, though. The high minimums actually restrict how many times you can fight.
You're exactly right, and it's so short-sighted too, because looking at the long game and the big picture, you're only going to develop yourself, your craft, your brand if you stay busy.
But I'm going to say one thing though.
Okay.
This is the biggest thing that is the most important thing that you have to do that I don't think people understand is they have to believe in themselves. And the guys that don't believe in themselves, they're waiting for the bag. The guys that believe in themselves, they don't give a shit.
They want to cash out.
James Toney didn't give a shit. He's like, I believe in myself. Fuck it. Put that cup on for me. Floyd is like, I don't care. Chula Vista, $2,500. I don't care. I want to write whatever. They don't care. They believe in themselves. The guys that don't are the ones that sit out.
Mario, we've talked about this, the ranking squatting. A guy will get a number one ranking, and instead of saying, I want you next, they'll be like, well, we're going to figure it out. In other words, we're waiting for a guy to vacate, and we want a very soft title fight. James Toney, as the number one contender, said, I will fight Michael Nunn. Not only will I fight him, I'll go to Davenport, Iowa's hometown. I don't see a lot of guys doing that anymore. It is a different game. Here's a young man that has a lot of belief in himself, and he knows he's going places, but you're taking him back to an arena that brings back childhood memories of Pernell Whitaker in Norfolk, Virginia at the Scope. If you haven't gotten tickets, folks, I heard it's too late, Todd.
Too late to get tickets.
Wow.
Went that clean. Clean, that quick.
That's great.
I mean, it's amazing, right? It's like we were talking about. It's like old days, Tapia Romero, Albuquerque.
Albuquerque.
Right?
Love that.
Yeah, Youngstown with Kelly Pavlik, right? And you go into these communities. I mean, Pernell was there all the time, and they haven't had world-class sport come to the forefront like that, especially with homebred guys. And Keyshawn was like, man, I want to go home. I want to go home. I want to do this. We're like, all right, sit tight, sit tight, sit tight. We did it with Floyd, man. Grand Rapids went crazy, and they really showed up. So I'm really looking forward to it. And by the way, he selected the opponent. My guys were giving him much easier opposition. He goes, no, I want that guy.
Lemos.
I want him. And they're like, what? He's like, no, that's the guy I want. And they were like, what do you think of Nicholas Walters? He looked great. What do you think of that? He's like, nope, I want that guy. I want to make a statement.
That's a fighter.
Yeah, and that'll be November 8th on ESPN. Another young man that I like, and we've talked about him for a few years now, Abdullah Mason. What's his ceiling?
This kid, the first time I meet him, he was young too, like 17 or 18.
You signed him at 17.
Yeah, 17 or 18. When I say Michaela has it, he has it. He comes in at 17, so proper, family all around him, and he's got all the cameras going, Mario. You would have loved it. He's got his social media. He plays on it well. He understands it. He's got great ability. Our matchmaker saw him early on, just saw how like young and talented he was, and I think he's got a really good head on his shoulders. Those things are so important.
Yeah, I like that kid.
And Mario, some of the drama that you talk about with other fathers and stuff, it doesn't really exist. I think they're much more grounded. The kid is not jaded yet.
That goes such a long way.
And when I look at this kid operate, now he's putting on the brakes. He's not running into stuff. And you cannot teach his speed, his power, and as you like to say, Todd, he's telegenic. When he's on that screen, you're like, that's something pretty doggone good. And you have a new series coming out. What exactly is Fight Life?
Wow, it's coming out right away. So Fight Life was kind of interesting. I think we saw this whole boom with Drive to Survive. Everybody saw Drive to Survive was just taking off. And I think, we've all sat around and said, what's new, what's fresh, right? And I think we got so formulaic in doing 24/7s, all accesses, looks at fighters. And one of the things I realized is I would be with business people, and I'd be just having dinner with friends. And people would say, what do you do? I'm a boxing promoter. What the hell's that? I'm like, well, this is what I do, right? It was like, you kind of explain what you do. And then they start asking you all these questions, and you start telling them about your daily life. And they're like, this is crazy. Are you serious? This is what you do for a living? And we were like, hey, what if we kind of like captured the ecosystem of the sport? What it's like to wake up in the morning and be the matchmaker when the guy is 5 pounds overweight, or what happens when paint is thrown on somebody outside the hotel room. I mean, this stuff is crazy, the shit we deal with.
Nothing else happens like that in the other sport.
And then you're in Tokyo on the 6th of May, and then you go to Australia, then you go to Riyadh, then you go to London, then you go to New York. And it's like, you're the Ringling Brothers, you're the circus. And make it part of like, shine the light on everything and everything that even you guys contribute to, right? When you guys are there and you're on location and your guys are sitting on hands and knees, just like going, oh, this fight is amazing. And I think too often that we just said, let's bring people, too often we don't bring people into our world and we keep it only fighter-centric or fight-centric, and then it expires. There's an expiration to it. So this is something we did. I went out and Richard Plepler, who's a great friend of mine, who used to be at HBO. When I was thinking about this, I went to him. I said, "Hey, let me pick your brain for a second." And he's like, Connor Shell and Words and Pictures are the guys to do it, and you should go talk to them. And it was funny. The day I went in to see them. They have one of their. Aaron Cohn has won. I think he started 24/7. He's won like 27 sports Emmys. And he said, and he was like, "So what's the show about?" And I like, "Okay, here's the show. My show is yesterday." And they're like, "What are you talking about? It's yesterday." It's yesterday. I was at the Shakur Stevenson weigh-in in New Jersey when he's fighting Constantino, right? Yeah. Shakur comes in like heavy, like 3 pounds. He's making $3 million. The other guy's making $300,000. Shakur won't lose the weight, and you want to know if you have a fight. And I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm just leaving. That's what the show is. Everyone's calling me, do you have a fight? So you're going to capture the fact that I don't know if I have a fight. That is the shit that we take for granted. Yeah. And we let it in, and they're like, I love this.
People don't know everything that goes by. I love it. I love it, even though I'm familiar with it and still see it. And just when you think you've seen it all, there's a new monkey wrench thrown. So congrats on that.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward
It's great.
to
There's 5 episodes.
That's great.
Season 1. We're shooting season 2 now. So it's fun. It's kind of weird. You're used to this. I'm not used to it, like having cameras all over you and shit mics and things in there like that. Yeah. I'm not used to that. It's fun. It's been great. And the other thing that's really, I mean, you obviously have a show and you see your crew all the time. When I show up at a fight and the crew's there, and I feel like they're part of our team, right? Yeah, they're part of like Top Rank now, and they're shooting stuff, and they're coming. Can I come in your office? And and it's great.
That's Todd. Awesome. People want to know, and there's a lot of conjecture on social media. Where do you stand right now, and what do you think are the prospects long term for your company's relationship with ESPN? Because you guys have been in business since about 2018. Where do things stand right now in your view?
Well, we're in the last year of our contract. Things are good with them. We have we're going to be talking to them and other people in the marketplace, and it's too early to say where we're going or what we're doing, but we're excited about what we've done. I think that to me has been the most important thing, is like bringing quality fights, broadly distributed network, and we'll see if we're going to be in a partnership with one media partner. 2, we're seeing multiple media partners being played out. You're seeing that in, if it was NASCAR, if you see it in basketball now, you see the NFL has 5 media partners. You're seeing streamers, legacy media. So we're excited to be in the sports business, and we're excited to bring new content to everybody. And whatever the platforms are, this is the process we're starting now.
But you're right. I think there could be multiple platforms because they're being able to pull it off elsewhere. What are your thoughts on the current landscape of the business with the Saudi Arabians getting involved and His Excellency Turkey, Al Sheikh, I believe, really just kind of diving in and head first, and just your thoughts in general?
My thoughts in general, and I think a lot of it is I'm somewhat jaded because I was born in Las Vegas in 1967, and there were only 80,000 or 100,000 people there. And Las Vegas needed to bring events to the town to make it relevant. People put it into the Sin City bucket, right? It was a gambling hall. It was crap. It was... you went there for, to get screwed up and messed up and drink too much or whatever the hell it was. And mostly gamble, come in for vices. And I think what it did was it said, listen, let's go after big entertainment, the Rat Pack. Let's go after boxing. Let's go after, they had racing there. They've had all these things. And I think what they have done, what the GEA has done, is they say, we're not a gas station. We're not a place that you're just going to go get your gas, which is Saudi Arabia. We want to know and let people know, come here for other things. Come here for WWE. Come here for Formula One. Come here for UFC. Come here for boxing. And I think he's playing that playbook. And I think the fighters and I think the people that are involved, because he's passionate. So it's one thing just to do it for the region, but also to have a passion for the sport. So I think it hits on two ends. I think it's really good if it's used for that as a conduit to draw people from all over the world to the territory.
Yeah, I agree. And he seems to be genuinely
Yeah,
passionate
if that's the objective.
Look, there are fights, like we said, next week, Artur Beterbiev, Dmitry Bivol is taking place, and it may not happen without this organization. Let's just be honest about it. People have said it. Another guy that says he wants to get into business, he's said this a few times, is Dana White. Now, I found it interesting that Dana says, I'll do business with anybody except Top Rank. Did that surprise you? Because I know that he has certain feelings about Bob. I always thought you got along with him, at least had a cordial professional relationship with him. How did you feel when he kind of named you in all of this?
Did he name me or he called me a scumbag?
I only heard...
he called me a scumbag.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Verbatim,
I actually missed that. I only heard because he called out Oscar.
Well, yeah.
No, I got a text. I landed and I got called a scumbag. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So
I was not aware there was any history.
I wasn't either.
Oh,
yeah. With Bob, there is. With Bob, there is.
I'll say this. Listen. Dana, I've known 30 years.
Oh, yeah. You guys are from the same. Yeah, of course.
So Dana, I've known 30 years.
Sure.
All right. Maybe, yeah. Lawrence Epstein, who's their COO, was best man at my wedding. He was our lawyer for we grew up together from when we were 5 years old. His mother is still my mother's best friend. I've known Mark Ratner for 30 years. Mm-hmm. I've known Hunter Campbell since he was a kid. Right, and his father, his dad was my attorney, our attorney, and he was also the UFC attorney. So, and I actually saw Hunter the other night right before their Sphere show. Always cordial. Lawrence and I exchanged texts occasionally. I don't know what Dana's thing is. I'm not going to think for Dana, right? I'm not going to guess what he is. I do believe he has a real hard on for Bob. All right, whatever it is. The guy's 92 years old. Come on. You're picking on Bob. I understand he can be cantankerous and say shit like a guy. Come on. Right? So to me, I don't get it. I do believe in the rise of UFC. Bob was the perfect foil for Dana. And I think he made him the face of boxing, and he's like, that cantankerous guy. That guy is what's bad. That guy is an old sport.
He's the symbol for everything wrong with the business.
Right. So I think that is, I believe, and I'm not going to guess. I'm not going to say. I actually believe it was his move to differentiate UFC and to associate the entire category with Bob, who would be bombastic and crazy and say stupid things or whatever it was, and he conveniently used it. I think the other day, he just behaviorally went back to his go-to move, right?
And then threw you in. You caught strays.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Caught a stray right there.
When you first met Bob, did you ever imagine that years later that boxing would be such a big part of your lifetime? When did you first dip your toe in? What were you thinking? This is a summer internship. I'll do this for a while. I'll get out in 10 years. How did your views and attitudes change towards your involvement in this business?
I think first, again, being from Las Vegas, boxing was part of my life as a kid. Before I even knew Bob, I went to Lawrence and I went to Leonard and Hagler. Oh, wow. And Leonard and Hearns. We went to Leonard and Hearns. I remember that. So
you had to be young. That was 81.
Yeah, we were like 14 years old. We'd go there. We used to go to the fights, and our families were there. We were like embedded in it. So as kids, we were always around it. And so boxing had like this incredible allure to me, and it was like It was part of me. I'll never forget. If we had some way to look up history, I don't remember the year.
I'm sure Kim will know.
All right. So,
Give 3 hints.
I used to get my hair cut as a kid. My parents would drop me off at the Caesar's Palace, all right, and basically go unattended. Nobody would walk me. I'd probably 7 or 8 years old.
Wait, what? Vegas?
This is like 1974. Whatever you're gonna figure.
So when Vegas was safe.
Yeah.
All right, you're gonna get that. You're gonna get this. This is crazy. And I'd go up and I'd push the button to go in the elevator. I'd go to the top of the Caesar's Palace, and there was a guy there by the name of Joey that would cut my hair. All right, as a kid. So, and I had the babas, right? You kids are like I'm moving like this and all this shit. And one day, I'm sitting there, and he has to put a TV, so I would like not move, right? And I'd be watching it like this, and I'd be like, he's like, there's a big fight coming up. I'm like, yeah. He's like, it was Larry Holmes and Ernie Shavers.
Oh, wow.
I don't know the year. I can't remember.
79.
There you go.
Hey,
I believe so.
So I'm 12. All right. And he's like, who do you want? You know who they are? I said, yeah. And I just thought Ernie Shavers was a badass, right?
Yeah, he was.
Bald head, the acorn. Yeah. I don't know why it was. I'm like, Shavers. Goes, I'm like, why? What do you mean? What do you mean? He said, why'd you ask? He's like, because if you would have said Larry Holmes, I was going to introduce you. He's right next door. He was in the other booth getting his hair cut.
Oh, that's a great story.
And I had to walk right by. I'm like, he walked me out, didn't introduce me.
By the way, that first fight was in 1978, actually, and Ernie Shavers hit Larry Holmes with what Doug Krikorian, legendary sports writer, covered all the fights for the Herald Examiner and LA Times. It's the hardest right hand I've ever seen in my life. Somehow Larry Holmes got up and scored a stoppage. So that was a different time.
By the way, I didn't answer the question, did I?
No.
Because this was about Bob. And
Right.
How the fuck did we spin off
So you meet Bob. So
Yeah,
you meet Bob. How does this happen?
My mom started dating Bob, and it was like the late 80s.
Right.
And I was out east. I was in college. I was in college, and I was playing hockey, running around, doing my thing. And they would do fights like in New York and Atlantic City. Yeah. And she's like, you want to come? I'm like, hell yeah, why not? Let's go to the fights. And also, when I was in college, there was a guy that was a great kid. He was 3 years older than me, and his name was John Levin. And he was a New Yorker. And his father was Jerry Levin, the ex-CEO of Time Warner, and one of the fathers of HBO. So Bob and Jerry kind of like the first Ali Frazier fight. Yeah. Jerry, that's what he did. That's what changed HBO. Yeah. So we had this commonality, like John and I would hang out in college. We'd go see his dad.
Oh, that's cool.
And so I was always kind of like embedded into like media, into boxing, and then Bob and I would just spend time together. I'll never forget. And now you guys remind me of this. Holyfield is fighting Foreman. And Holyfield fights him, and the fight's in Atlantic City. Am I correct?
1991. First TV KO fight, by the way.
All right, 1991. So at that point, I'm 25 years old. All right? And we're in Atlantic City for the fight, and Bob and Lovey are there. And I'm going back to New York because I'm working in New York City at the time. And this is wild. And Bob says to me, "Hey, I need you to do me a favor." I'm like,
your impression is much better than
No, it's not. No,
it is
no.
much better than his.
I'm like, "Yeah, Bob, what do you need?" He goes, "I want you to go back to the lawyer's office in New York, Mike Heitner." And I'm like, "Yeah?" He goes, "Would you give him this? Have him deposit this." And it was the money for George Foreman. And I remember looking at all the check, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing. I've never seen so much money in my life." And I'm like in a car going back to New York at 25 years old.
What was it back then?
I don't even remember. Honestly, I don't remember the money. I don't remember the amount, but I remember it was
a lot. I'm sure it's a lot. Yeah.
It was a lot back then. It was a ton. Damn. And I was like, wow.
We trusted you.
Well, yeah, I didn't screw that one up.
Yeah. I mean, Todd,
I may be screwing up today, 35 years later, but I didn't screw that one
Todd,
up.
what was your first impressions of Bob when you met him?
You know, he was. He was great. He was like super nice, super sweet, always cordial, always things like that. I didn't really see the Bob until later. All right, until later. So, so my first event was Tulsa, Oklahoma. So he says to me, he's like, listen, my kids have no interest in. I was working in New York. He's like, my kids have no interest. I was doing real estate in New York. He's like, in the business. If you want to try it out, let's try it out. And I'm like, you know what? 26 years old, why not? Right? What do I have to lose? He's like, great.
That's why he saw it in you, though, to at least offer.
Yeah, he's like, hey, my kids have no interest, and if you want to try this out, I need somebody younger to deal with the fighters, right? Mm-hmm. Oscar was 92. He had just signed him. So I'm like, okay, great. So I go. Our first fight is in my first one when I'm working, it was August of '93, I think, somewhere in there. Tulsa, Oklahoma. Tommy Morrison was at Michael Bent
when he blew the play payday.
Yep.
Yes.
The Lennox Lewis fight was on the table.
Then
the
next night was Michael Carbajal. I think it was back to back because they flew to Phoenix the next night. All right.
Is that when he fought Chiquito Gonzalez?
No. It was something on ESPN, I think. Okay. All right. So I can't remember what it was. So my first day on the job, when we go to Las Vegas, is I go to a disciplinary hearing for Bob because in front of the Nevada Athletic Commission, he had called the commissioner a schmuck. So right then I should have known. Oh, no. I'm in for a roller coaster ride. First day, the commissioner, they have a hearing for Bob why he called the commissioner a schmuck.
That's funny.
So Todd, when did you decide okay, I can do this. I'm good here. How long did that take?
I mean, first of all, I had to learn a ton from Bob, right? You had to learn from what was going on, what was right. I think I enjoyed the events. I enjoyed putting these events on. I enjoyed being part of it. I enjoyed creating goosebumps for people all over the world, right? Like people just getting all excited and people like, oh, this is great. This is great. I think when I really enjoyed it was when Bob gave me the rope. He gave me the ability to like be Forrest Gump and run and do something myself. And that took a lot, right? Not everybody did that. I'm not sure Don gave anybody that rope. I'm not sure Dan Duva gave anybody that. Those were the icons back then. Yeah. Bob, Dan, and Don. And Bob just inherently said, go. And we fought. We there was a tug of war going on the whole time because it was his way or no way, but he still gave me that ability and the passion to try my path or to try to make a different opportunity or look things outside of what he was doing. And that gave me hope. So that was really the truth.
And I got to imagine all these years later, you don't get tired of those moments. And there's always something new. And like you said, that's goosebumps feelings, those sort of, it keeps you young. It keeps you energized. It at least as a fan, it never gets old. I think it's got to transfer, right?
Every time I see the video, this is boxing.
Oh, that gets you fired up every time. Every time, get fired up.
And we were at the fight the other night, and I can't remember who came up to me. Somebody in New York came up. I got to remember. He goes, God, it never gets old. Yeah. And I said to him, if you know how many versions I'm sitting with of updated This Is Boxing. Oh, I have know that I'm telling you, my team, they want to kill me because I just it's not it. It's not. I mean, we must have 4 different versions in the can. That it's like it's close, but it's not it. And it's something about that video. Mm-hmm. It's the way we did it, the way our team did it, the drama, just built on the drama. That one moment when the fighter walks out, it's so special in all of sports. The guy leaves the dressing room and the crowd rises. That is so unique.
Nothing like it.
There is the energy in anything. Mm-hmm. I don't care what you do. There's nothing in sports like that one moment.
Todd, I know you got dinner plans. We don't want to keep you too long, but I have one last question. So speaking of all those moments, which is the most special one for you in terms of a fight?
Well, that's true. I would say give us your top 3.
Yeah.
If you can.
Top 3 events.
Yes.
So it's not specific to the fight because it can't be specific.
It could be both. I mean,
it could be whatever.
Memorable moments.
Well, I'll say this because the world truly stopped in Mayweather-Pacquiao. I mean, the amount of business that thing did all over the world, and the world stopped. We should all just give ourselves a pat on the back. It was amazing, right? How those personalities got to be the way they were, how big it was, so special.
Yep.
Foreman Moore.
Yeah. Damn, those are good ones.
Those are two.
That's
those were two super, super special ones. One that that's more of a personal one. I don't know what the third would be, but I don't. There's too many at there. There's too many after that.
Well, it's like you come back then.
Yeah, I got to think of that.
Yeah, your next visit, you can go through your top 30. We'll narrow it down for you.
It's like but each one of them, just occupies something special. Yeah. I'll say what I'm going to say. I have a new one that I just appreciate. We talked about the globalization of the sport, and we're on the heels of seeing Joshua and DuBoef, right? The Wembley events are fantastic. They're electrifying. The pageantry, the fans there, 95,000. Those are real special.
Right.
You must go to. Regardless if you must go to. So I like those a lot. It's not for you. Like, you're such a purist. I don't know what to say.
No. I like the stadium events. Hold on.
But you're such a purist.
One day I will get the passport out. I want to go to. No, I have friends that actually want to go to Japan for an Inoue fight, and they actually have told me, Steve, you got to go to one of these UK stadium events. They truly are special.
Frazier's actually gone.
Well, yes. Yeah.
Frazier saw Joshua out there.
So anyway, guys, we want to let you know this podcast is sponsored by Hustler Casino. Beat the congestion and enjoy free parking every day at Hustler Casino. Introducing So Fine Sundays, where every Sunday you can win tons of cash with drawings every 2 hours from high noon to 8 p.m. Stop by and see how big you can win at Hustler Casino. And also, if you'd like to sponsor our show, email us at info@boxbid.io. Todd, it's been too long. When are you dropping by again? About 2029?
Well, I got to come up with my number 3.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to be back next. I'm going to be back next week. I'm going to come by next week.
Anytime.
But Todd, anytime you're in town, please drop by. So on behalf of Mario Lopez, Smokin' Tim Frazier, and Tino on the edits, this has been the 3 Knockdown Rule, brought to you by Hustler Casino.